There is a habit so widespread that it has shaped empires, fueled wars, generated fortunes, and altered the health of billions of people. Yet almost nobody knows where it truly began. Not the modern cigarette, not the tobacco industry, not even farming. The deeper story. The story of the first human who intentionally inhaled smoke. At some point in the distant past, long before cities, kingdoms, or written language, a human being stood beside a fire and did something unusual. They breathed the smoke in on purpose. Why? What were they trying to accomplish? And perhaps most importantly, what happened inside their mind when they did? The answer takes us thousands of years into humanity's past. And the science becomes far stranger than most people realize. Most people assume smoking began with tobacco. That seems obvious. After all, tobacco is the substance most closely associated with smoking today. But tobacco is only one chapter in a much older story. Humans were interacting with smoke long before anyone cultivated tobacco plants, long before agriculture, long before civilization itself. Fire has accompanied humanity for hundreds of thousands of years. Evidence suggests that controlled fire use may date back at least several 100,000 years, possibly even longer. Ancient humans cooked with fire, protected themselves with fire, gathered around fire, slept beside fire. Their lives revolved around it. This meant they were constantly exposed to smoke, day after day, generation after generation. But passive exposure is not the same thing as intentional inhalation. Somewhere along the way, humans began using smoke for purposes beyond warmth and survival. And that's where the mystery begins. Archaeologists have discovered evidence suggesting that many ancient cultures burned plants specifically to produce smoke. Sometimes in caves, sometimes in ritual spaces, sometimes in enclosed structures where inhaling the smoke would have been unavoidable. What researchers found was that these plants were often chosen very carefully. They were not random pieces of vegetation thrown into a fire. Many contained compounds capable of affecting the human brain. But that's not the strange part. The strange part is how widespread this behavior became. Across continents separated by vast oceans, humans repeatedly discovered that certain plants could alter consciousness when burned. Different cultures found different plants. Yet they arrived at remarkably similar practices. The explanation should have ended there. It didn't. Because smoking appears to have emerged independently many times throughout human history. In the Americas, tobacco eventually became one of the most important ritual and social plants ever known. Archaeological evidence suggests humans were using tobacco thousands of years ago. Pipes discovered in ancient sites indicate that smoking practices existed long before written history in the region. But tobacco was only one example. Ancient peoples also smoked various herbs, resins, tree products, and psychoactive plants. Some were used medicinally, others spiritually, others socially. The deeper question is why. Why would humans repeatedly choose to inhale substances that irritated the lungs and triggered coughing? At first glance, the behavior seems irrational. Yet neuroscience suggests there may have been powerful rewards hidden beneath the discomfort. Many smoke-producing plants contain chemicals capable of interacting directly with the brain. Nicotine is perhaps the most famous. When nicotine enters the bloodstream, it rapidly reaches the brain and influences neurotransmitter systems associated with attention, reward, learning, and motivation. The result is a noticeable shift in mental state. Increased alertness, improved focus, a subtle feeling of reinforcement. In evolutionary terms, this is significant. Human brains evolved to seek experiences that produce useful biological signals. Food, social connection, novel discoveries. Certain plant chemicals appear capable of activating some of the same reward pathways. And then something unexpected happened. Humans did not simply consume these plants. They built entire cultural systems around them. Ancient societies often treated smoking as something sacred, not recreational, sacred. Among many indigenous cultures, smoke became associated with communication, healing, ritual, and connection to forces beyond ordinary experience. The smoke itself was sometimes viewed as carrying prayers, intentions, or messages. To modern minds, that may sound symbolic. But neuroscience offers an interesting perspective. Human consciousness is highly sensitive to altered states, changes in breathing patterns, changes in sensory perception, changes in neurochemistry. All can influence how reality feels. When ancient humans encountered these experiences, they often interpreted them through spiritual frameworks. The science becomes harder to explain when we look even further back. Because smoking may not have been humanity's first relationship with psychoactive substances. Evidence from archaeology suggests ancient humans interacted with mind-altering plants in many different ways. Some were eaten, some brewed, some inhaled, some burned in ritual contexts. Researchers studying prehistoric behavior increasingly suspect that curiosity about altered consciousness may be far older than once believed. Perhaps ancient humans were not merely surviving. Perhaps they were experimenting, testing, exploring, searching for experiences beyond ordinary awareness. What happened next may have influenced the development of religion itself. Many anthropologists have noted the connection between altered states of consciousness and spiritual traditions. Across cultures, humans repeatedly sought experiences that felt larger than everyday reality. Visions, dreams, trances, ecstatic states. Smoking sometimes became one pathway toward those experiences. Of course, not every ancient smoker was seeking spiritual enlightenment. Humans are humans. Some probably enjoyed the sensations. Some likely used smoke for social bonding. Some may have used it to reduce stress or discomfort. Others simply followed traditions inherited from previous generations. But the pattern remains remarkably consistent. Smoke became more than smoke. It became meaning. And meaning is one of humanity's defining characteristics. Here's where it gets even more interesting. The act of smoking may reveal something profound about the human mind. Most animals interact with the world directly. Humans do something different. We modify it. We transform it. We discover that a plant can produce an effect. Then we create rituals around it. Stories around it, beliefs around it, entire social systems around it. The physical substance becomes only part of the experience. The psychological meaning becomes equally important. Researchers studying addiction often emphasize that human behavior is rarely driven by chemistry alone. Context matters. Expectation matters. Culture matters. Identity matters. The first smoker was not merely inhaling smoke. They were participating in a uniquely human process, experimenting with reality itself, trying to understand what happened when nature interacted with consciousness. And that process never really stopped. Thousands of years later, humans still seek altered states through caffeine, alcohol, meditation, music, religion, technology, psychoactive substances. The tools have changed. The impulse remains. The desire to explore the boundaries of experience appears deeply woven into human nature. Which brings us back to the original question. When did ancient humans start smoking? The honest answer is that nobody knows exactly. The first smoker left no written record. No name, no story, no explanation. Only traces scattered across archaeology, anthropology, and history. But evidence suggests the roots of smoking stretch back thousands of years, emerging long before modern civilization transformed it into a global habit. And perhaps the more interesting question is not when it started, but why it started at all. Because hidden within that first deliberate breath was something uniquely human. Curiosity, the desire to explore the unknown, the willingness to experiment with the world and with the mind itself. A single inhalation may have been the beginning of a habit, but it was also the beginning of a question. What happens if I try this? That question has driven countless discoveries throughout human history. It has led to science, medicine, exploration, innovation, and sometimes unintended consequences. The first smoker could never have imagined the world that would follow. But in a strange way, they were participating in one of humanity's oldest traditions, looking beyond what is, and wondering what else might be possible. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this, subscribe for more. See you in the next one.